Nicole Danielle.
And I'm Meghan Lee, and this is Romance on the Rocks, where two bookish biddies imbibe. If you find romance novels to be as much fun as we do, then this is the podcast for you.
What are you drinking tonight, Nicole?
This was a toughie for me for matching the theme of my book, but I finally came up with a little take on The Farmer's Daughter.
Oh.
Which is berry smushings, gin, basil leaves, and lemon juice.
That sounds really good. I like that better than what I made, which mine is good. It's just not really my style. Yours is my style. There was a character in my book that drank a lot of martinis. I assume that they were just straight up vodka martinis. Anybody who knows me knows that I have tried real hard to like a nice dirty martini gin. I don't like vermouth. I just can't do it. And so I was looking up ways to make a martini without vermouth. And there is something called a Churchill martini. I don't know if you've heard of this, but I thought this was really funny. Apparently, Winston Churchill also did not like vermouth. And he's quoted as saying something like, I like to see my vermouth across the room when I'm drinking my martini. Like, that's how close he wanted the vermouth to his actual martini. So he just pretty much was drinking vodka in a glass. Anyway, I went for something that I knew I'd be able to stomach mostly. So I have I'll call it like an espresso martini, maybe. It's very sweet. So it's a little bit much
milky.
For me. Yes. And so there will only be one of these because I don't think my stomach can handle more than one of them. So there is a coffee liqueur and some of that Irish manor that I drank a couple episodes back, and vodka shaken with some ice in a little martini glass. So I felt like it was on theme. It's just not necessarily my favorite. So if you were here, I would ask to trade because yours sound good.
And I have an extra basil ice cube left, so I totally could have made you your own smushings drink.
I would have loved that. That sounds so good. I will stomach my drink, and I think a lot of other people would probably really enjoy this. I just had a pretty negative experience with too many cream-based martinis one night, and so this is going to be a slow sipper for me.
Probably for the best.
Yeah.
So we are doing an April Fool's episode today and going for a fools in love, tricks and fools type of theme. So Meghan, what did you read?
Yeah, so I read a book called Tricks of the Trade by Ben Tyler. This was published in 2001. Again, when we keep talking about books feel like they're of their time, this feels like a book written in 2001 for a lot of different reasons. But let's see where to start. So this is our first LGBTQ novel for the podcast. And in a lot of ways, it didn't disappoint. But we all know me, and I go into these very skeptical. So that has not changed. Our main character here is Bart Kane. He works as a publicist / writer for a Hollywood studio called Sterling. It's a well-known studio for hiring a lot of LGBTQ folks. It's pretty friendly in that regard. And again, remember, this is 2001. So we still at the time, didn't have gay marriage legalized across the country. And, there still was a lot of stigma involved with being part of that community. So being in a more friendly environment there, that's good. You're in Hollywood, already a more friendly place. The main story goes like this. Bart's immediate boss, Sherry, is conniving and cruel. She takes pleasure in bringing Bart down and just generally trashing most of the people around her. Bart is absolutely miserable at work and feels as though his career in Hollywood has really tarnished his chance at happiness. He's pretty active in chat rooms, which nowadays we'd say he's on Tinder or he's on Grindr, But at the time, we're talking about like AOL and stuff like that. So he's active
dialing up.
Yeah. So he's active in the chat rooms where people are seeking their hookups. And in one of these chat rooms, he meets Rod. Rod seems like the answer to Bart's loneliness and misery. He's an aspiring writer, and he spends his days writing and working on his screenplays, and his nights alternately tending bar at a very trendy gay hotspot and taking in clients for sex work.
Oh.
Yes. So this book is very sex forward. If you are looking for a book that talks about body parts all the time, man, have I got a book for you. Bart and Rod's relationship starts as a standard sex for money kind of affair, but grows quickly into some kind of relationship. What kind is to be determined, right? I think each one of them is looking for something completely different out of this. Even though the two of them clearly have something going on beyond the cash for sex dynamic, it quickly becomes clear that Bart is far more emotionally invested in this than Rod is. Rod continues his outside sexcapades, most often for cash, but infrequently also just because he can. We can see that hurts Bart a lot, but because he entered this arrangement knowing that was a thing, he also doesn't really feel like it's his place to say, hey, man, I want this to be monogamous. We can see also that Rod is kind of a master manipulator. He is most likely a narcissist just based on things we're seeing in the book. And at one point in time, they even talk about Narcissus, the Greek myth, and how Rod is so much like that, staring at his own reflection. So it's very clear that he's in this for himself. At the core of it, Rod is hoping that Bart's connections within the film industry will help him get his screenplay some attention. Bart does get some insiders to review one of Rod's scripts, and it gets positive reviews. And then in order to kind of placate Rod, and then also to stroke his own ego, to stroke Bart's own ego, Bart decides to have Rod accompany him as his date to one of these fancy Hollywood parties. Bart's excited because he wants everybody to see him with this really handsome younger man. He's excited to show off his arm candy and have people be like, oh my gosh, how did he end up with that handsome man? So he's proud that he's got this really handsome date. And Rod's smart, and so he's going to be showing him off to his friends, whereas Rod decides to go to this party basically just to make his own connections and get his foot in the door. Things quickly fall apart at or after this party. The party is being held at the home of Jim Fallon, which, just a side note here, this book was written in 2001. Jimmy Fallon was a person at the time. He wasn't as famous as he is now. But then there's also another character in this book named Michael Scott, which is the name of the boss on The Office. So It was difficult for me to read this and be like, Michael Scott and Jim Fallon were blah, blah, blah. That was a little bit hard.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, this was written prior to those two being as big of a deal. Anyway, this party is being held at Jim Fallon's house. Jim was recently a star in his very own comedy TV show called The Grass is Greener. However, he just had a sex tape scandal that completely derailed his career. The Grass is Greener show was kind of like a family-friendly sitcom with bland humor where Jim played like the everyman, your next-door neighbor manly guy. However, this sex tape, even nowadays, I think would be considered kind of intense. So think about this even 25 years ago then. Basically, the sex tape showed that not only is he gay, which back in the day would have been problematic, but there was also some extreme BDSM and other kink things going on. And so that just, you couldn't have that mixed with this, shiny, family-friendly kind of image. So right now his career is basically just tanked. So he's giving a last hurrah party. And so everybody's arriving just so they can kind of take advantage of the money he's throwing at this. Bart arrives with Rod on his arm. Jim is smitten immediately with Rod because Rod's really handsome. And so after Bart and Rod leave the party, Jim, who was probably on his 6th or 7th martini, went ahead and drunkenly called and left messages for Rod. Now, take into account again, 25 years ago, we had answering machines. Bart and Rod are in bed and they're just hearing the answering machine continue to go off and they're listening as Jim is leaving these messages. So it's not like Rod can check these messages in private later and be like, oh, wow. No, they are listening as these are coming in, like one after the other. And it's pretty clear from what Jim is saying that he has ulterior motives. It's not just like, hey, it was nice to meet you. I'd like to talk about your screenplay. It was like, nice to meet you.
Oh.
I want to talk about your screenplay. So now they're laying in bed late at night. Bart also recognizes what these messages really mean, and he figures this is like his only chance. He really cares about Rod, and he doesn't want to lose him to somebody like Jim Fallon. And so he turns and tells Rod, I love you, man. And Rod says nothing.
Oh,
just silence. Cricket. So they wake up the next morning. Bart gets dressed, says, see you later, dude, and leaves, knowing he will probably never go back again. I mean, that party just kind of like squashed everything because it just, even though Bart knew that Rod was kind of in it for himself, that was just the cherry on top of like, very clearly, this is what's going on. So shortly thereafter, Rod moves in with Jim. It's exactly what Bart had been thinking. So now Bart is heartbroken and spends a few weeks moping around and feeling sorry for himself. Now, I'm going to go back to the beginning because what I need to tell you is going through the beginning of this book, it felt to me like all three of these men were unreliable narrators. And you know when you read a book where you're trying to figure out if this person is actually working in reality or not? All three of these guys seem to be just a tish not able to give me the real story. For example, the opening scene of this book, Bart is actually sitting in his psychiatrist's office. And he's trying to talk about like everything that's going on at work and how he's feeling. And just the interactions between him and the psychiatrist lead you to believe that perhaps Bart has these racing thoughts and a martyr complex and perhaps paranoia, and not everything he's talking about with his work relationships and the misery he's feeling is all based in reality. It's hard to tell how much of it is truth. Hard to tell if his boss is as awful as he's making out or if this is just part of what's going on in his head. Then you get the parts told from Rod's perspective, and you can tell he's very self-centered, very narcissistic, and even when it appears like maybe he's about to have an emotional attachment or something, it's like he immediately minimizes that, dismisses anything that is genuine in nature, and then reverts to manipulation and self-gratification. Then Jim Fallon, the gentleman who just lost his career, he's an aging alcoholic who seems to blame everyone around him for his failings. No real personal insight. So in this mess of characters, and then there's a mix of, other supporting characters that also seem to have their own issues. Everybody seems highly flawed. And it made the beginning of this book very difficult to get through. I had a hard time feeling sympathetic for them because I couldn't really feel if any of them deserved my sympathy, if that makes sense. Also, a huge part of this book is name dropping. If you took out the name of every A-list and B-list star that Ben Tyler put into this book, you'd lose 50 pages of this book.
Jeez, okay.
It's a 300-page book, and I swear 50 pages would be gone if you took out the name dropping. So, for example, I was getting real irritated because it felt like it almost brought the story to a halt. Because it was like, how many other famous names can I put in this paragraph? Just get on with the story. I don't need to know about Dolly Parton and Delta Burke and just stop. And I had said to Adam, my husband Adam, when I was sitting and reading, I tried to explain to him what was going on. And he goes, oh, so so Courtney Cox was blah, blah, blah. And I had to laugh because literally the page I was on says, so far, the chamber had managed to evade Courtney Cox Arquette. And I'm like, yes, sir. You not only did you know exactly what I was talking about, but it's right here on this page that you just said. How many times can you talk about wanting Rupert Everett to star in a movie and, you know, how it just, anyway. So that was annoying. Excessive sex.
Oh.
And, you know, you and I talk about, like, my preference in books is not going to be overly sexual. I like the communication and the romantic part.
Yeah.
This book was a lot of sex, you guys. A lot. And it's a lot of, it's heavy on blowjobs. It's heavy on kink. It's a lot of sex without any connection or romance. It's just a lot of naked bodies. So it was really difficult for me to get through that part. And I actually was a little bit worried that that is what constituted romance in this book. But at page 120, I finally got some reprieve, and the book changed for the better. Around page 120, we get introduced to Rusty. Rusty is not mentioned on the back of the book, on the front. Rusty's not mentioned anywhere. Thank God for Rusty. Without Rusty, this book would not have made me happy at all. Rusty enters the book. He is a highly talented and sought-after dog trainer. He's admired in his industry. He offers training services to, like, Hollywood's elite. Because of this, he's called into Sterling Studios to meet with Bart's boss, Sherry. She wants to hire him to train her pooch. He is such a breath of fresh air. He and Bart hit it off almost immediately, and their relationship is lovely. Rusty is very communicative. He's thoughtful, intelligent, well-read, supportive, etc., etc. If I could think of a word to throw in there for Rusty that is positive, I probably would. I cannot say enough about him as a character. It is through that blossoming relationship with Bart that we kind of start to see that Bart's previous instability and angst had so much to do with his negative work relationships and then his emotional investment in somebody like Rod who did not deserve it. Quite frankly, not worth his time. You can see that instability was really part of that. And you start to feel a lot more drawn to Bart's character. He starts to become more real. So I'm not going to give away the ending. I'll just say that, again, having somebody like Rusty in the book made it so much better. Until then, I wouldn't have called it a romance novel. A gratuitous sex novel, maybe. But Rusty is a perfect leading man, and I would put him in any of our books and be happy with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last part of this book sees Rusty and Bart, and then Rod and Jim all reuniting to join forces to take on the evil boss, Sherry, after she harasses and fires a number of innocent people from the Sterling Studios staff. So that's the majority of the book. I have a couple quotes I'd love to go into and explain one of the reasons that I loved Rusty's character. You and I talk all the time about how we like communication and we don't like jealousy. Rusty is the prime example of that. At one point in time in the book, Rod comes crawling back to Bart asking for help. You know, Bart's already in this relationship with Rusty now. It's a very healthy relationship. And so he goes to Rusty and he says, hey, Rod is trying to contact me. He really wants help. I kind of brushed him off and that made me really uncomfortable. And Rusty is basically like, he asked you for help because he trusts you. Maybe you should do something about that. And Bart's kind of taken aback because he's not expecting his current partner to be that understanding. And so he says, so I should at least call Rod back and find out how I might be able to help him? Is that what you're advising? I mean, he did sound awfully sad and desperate. And then Rusty responds, I've never understood contentious breakups. Call Rod, ask if he needs help from either one of us. We're a couple, and it goes without saying that if I can be of any service, I trust you, and you just let me know.
That's
very
nice.
That is very thoughtful.
Yes.
And it's not something you see in most of these books. And then after Bart gets dumped by Rod and he's so miserable, he starts talking about his fantasy about what he's going to be looking for in a new man. And he's telling a friend, when I start dating again, it'll be with somebody from the top of my sensible list. A brilliant but boring seismologist from Caltech who will charm me with endless pillow talk about tectonic plates, the Richter scale, volcanic eruptions. Or else he'll be an architect who designs strip malls in Tucson. And his idea of domesticity is to have me for a lover, build a Victorian dollhouse for us to live in happily ever after, and make annual pilgrimages to Falling Waters and all the other Frank Lloyd Wright houses in America. We'll spend Friday nights playing Monopoly or entertaining successful monogamous gay couples. I just thought, what a cute fantasy.
That sounds positively delightful.
Doesn't it? And that's why I said around this time was when I started feeling more like I could relate to Bart's character. Like the beginning of the book, he just felt like he was floundering and I couldn't figure him out. Like if he was off his rocker or if he was, you know what I mean? Like you've all met somebody who's in a place where you're like, I'm not sure what's going on with them right now. That was him in the beginning of the book. And then somewhere in the middle, he starts to like even out and level. And then he meets this really lovely man who kind of fits into all these things he would have wanted. And I thought that was very sweet. And then toward the end of the book, you know, they've been together for quite a while now. And I just thought this was a great line. Without having to say it, Bart and Rusty both knew that they were enough for each other. I was like, very nice. So yeah, the book in the beginning was difficult to get through, but at least I came out on the other end with kind of a satisfying wrap up on what truly became a love story. And it didn't seem like that's where it was going to begin with. So I was pleased that that's where it ended. I would say probably Carolina Reaper on this one.
Okay. Really?
It's a lot, Nicole. And then I'm not giving that spicy Scoville because it did anything for me. Like, this is not me going like, ooh, this was so spicy. It's just more like, oh boy, this one needs like a warning that you're going to be walking into some stuff. So prepare yourself.
Well, what did we say? Carolina Reaper will leave you dead. Did you feel like it left you dead?
Yes, there was a lot. There was a lot. I will even say there was one sexual escapade for one of the characters that did actually leave him dead. So I will say
Shit.
Carolina Reaper on this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I do feel your story seems to have some realism in the sense that not everyone has a great love story from the beginning, right? Yep. You kiss a lot of frogs, you date a lot of and then ideally you meet the right person.
and you go through times where you think you love someone. You know, you really do. There's something about them that's very compelling, and maybe not having been in love before, you assume that what you're feeling is love. And I do think that Bart's infatuation with Rod, he was completely misinterpreting. And I think it was a sense of desperation, too. Like, he was so desperate to keep this person around because he felt so lonely that he was willing to overlook some things that were very detrimental to his own, you know, like mental health and physical health and whatever. Like, he's with somebody who's, you know, not that every relationship needs to be monogamous. That's not what I'm saying at all. But very clearly, that was not what Bart wanted. He didn't want to be in a relationship where he was sharing his partner. And that partner very clearly did not emotionally care for him.
Yeah.
So I do feel like we've all been in that spot too. And then suddenly you're in that relationship where you do feel valued and you do feel loved and you recognize, oh no, this is love. And thank God I don't have to deal with what I was dealing with before.
Thank goodness for Rusty.
Oh, guys, without Rusty, I would put Rusty up there seriously with any other really good male love interest in almost any book I've read, just based on the communication, the caring, the non-jealousy. He was super supportive. Yeah. Thank you, Ben, for putting Rusty in this book.
Rusty to the rescue.
Exactly. Exactly. How about you, Nicole?
I read Lord Rupert's Foolish Bride by Maggie Jagger. It is a historical romance published in 2015. I didn't spend a lot of effort finding this particular read because I was just basically searching for titles that would kind of fit the theme.
I feel like that's what we both did, yeah.
So I didn't have high hopes on this one, but I was delightfully surprised. It was a nice read.
Oh, that's good.
We have Lord Rupert Varian. He is the last of 3 sons, and he stands to basically inherit nothing, as his father and older brothers are basically drunken gamblers, just frittering away whatever money they have. And he is trying to secure himself a modest future by becoming a landowner and having a nice little manor house and some farming activities. So nothing extravagant, just eking out a nice little comfortable living, knowing that the first couple of years are going to be a little rough as he gets the farm and manor going.
Sure, but that's respectable.
Yeah. And he just wants to get away from his older brothers and his dad and that whole lifestyle. The answer to that is Jenny Tolliver. I have one word that just completely describes Jenny: quirky. She's very, very quirky, and I love her. She has a donkey, pet donkey, named Winifred Wellington.
Oh, she's a girl after my own heart.
It's just the cutest damn thing. Like, she gives her donkey flower crowns and hats and hangs out with this donkey, like, all the time, which normally would be so weird to me, but it actually really works, and it's really cute in this book. And then she has a dog named Thrasher, who is supposed to be this really hard, growly, nasty, threatening dog, and he's just the biggest puppy ever. So she has long pretended to be an idiot, basically to avoid her father's abuse, but she's actually been the one running her father's farm, and he's actually quite a wealthy farm owner. And she does have some land to her name, so to speak, because her mother brought land to the marriage. And so her father is willing to let Lord Rupert take some of this land in exchange for marrying Jenny. Jenny's only request is, please let my donkey come with. And then I'll marry you. Yeah, solid request. Let my donkey come with, don't use and abuse me, and I will marry you and give you these lands. And she's excited to get away from her abusive father. So it's a win-win for both of them. They both come from very abusive families, but it hasn't destroyed them. They are still both really earnestly loving, honest people. And they're both naturally gentle people. They've just had to learn to defend themselves over the years. And Rupert, I feel, can still be a little naive at times, but Jenny's not afraid to fight for them both. And she's kind of a hero in her own right and a very brave young woman. So Rupert makes this arrangement with Farmer Tolliver, and him and Jenny don't really know each other that well. They just kind of know of each other because it's a small little countryside type of town atmosphere. They just know that they have a really good rapport right off the bat. Anytime they've been around each other, they have a great rapport, witty banter, great conversations. And it certainly doesn't hurt that Jenny is a pretty young lass. So Jenny agrees to it. They get married. It's a very simple, quick ceremony. No thrills, no spills or anything like that. Just a very marriage of convenience type of thing. But the book goes from there and covers about 2 years of time.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I like that.
Yeah. So during this 2 years, they embark on their marriage. They get to know one another well, and their personalities just, oh my gosh, they mesh so well together. They have lots of great banter and work together to solve a variety of problems and challenges they encounter, the whole time being honest with each other and just really supportive of each other. And they have all these crazy problems and plots and twists and turns from their abusive fathers and lecherous and plotting brothers on both sides. And somehow Jenny and Rupert just really make great partners. and are just trying to tackle all this stuff that comes their way. And some of it is pretty crazy. And I don't want to give it away, but through it all, I have to say they're just really great partners. And I love Jenny's spunk and bravery. And there's these moments with her donkey and these little adventures, and it's just hilarious. And Rupert is just always very gentle and loving, and he respects and values Jenny's personality traits and never expects her to change and never asks her to do anything she doesn't want to. So even though he's part of this noble family and there's these expectations that she should be a proper lady now, he's like, no, I love you the way you are. You're good. You don't have to do anything you don't want to or change. You're good. It's very sweet.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So I won't spoil it much beyond that. There's some crazy, mysterious characters throughout the story where I was like, where is this going? Who is this guy? And why is Jenny like freaked out by him? But it gets answered. And it's a nice, solid read. I very much appreciated pages 96 and 101. The writer, Jagger, uses the word romantical, Megan.
Oh, that's one of our favorites.
I know.
Did they add that to the
words
dictionary yet for us?
Yeah, apparently it's a word because Jagger uses it twice. So beyond that, that's pretty much it. I would give this one definitely not Carolina Reaper. I would put this just slightly under a jalapeno. There were some sex scenes, but they were brief and there wasn't a ton of details. So
somewhere between like a poblano and a jalapeno.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I would probably put it more on poblano. Let me adjust my notes there. Let's call that poblano.
I had to debate on mine. I had to keep going back and forth. I'm like, am I looking at habanero or Carolina Reaper? And I'm like, no, one of the acts did leave someone dead, so we'll go with Carolina Reaper.
That's crazy. So, Megan, when did the nipples and or chest or breasts hit?
I think I win this one. I'm just going to tell you, I was very excited because,
to win the booby prize.
This was a very sexual book. So I was like, I feel like I have like some standing here. So I'm page 6.
Nice.
Yeah, I think this is the earliest I have ever had in a book.
I was just about to say this may be a new record for you.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely. This is not a maybe. This is definitely is the earliest. I'm not even going to do the whole sentence because the whole sentence makes no sense out of context of like all the surrounding paragraphs. But we'll just say the sentence starts with April with her big tits and hard nipples. So
okay.
I think I win this one just based on your description of your book compared to the description of mine. So what page do we have for you?
Oh, not until 91, Megan.
Yeah, that's more like a Megan style.
I feel like we flip-flopped for this episode. So my boobies, page 91. He kissed her breast, teasing with sudden long lashings and soft nips from his teeth, and all while her body reacted to his mastery of her.
Very nice. See, your sentence made sense. I couldn't even read mine. Not gonna happen.
Do you have a romantical reminder?
Yeah. So I'm going to open my book to page 153. So this is Rusty, and he is talking to Bart about Rod, so Bart's ex, and he says, first of all, if it helps, I know he doesn't mean the same thing to you anymore. The fact that you were once important to each other should still count for something. So my romantical reminder is, folks, your partner's past is what brought them to you. Your partner's past is what made them who they are. That is why they want to be with you. So the romantic reminder is just everybody has a past, and being able to recognize and respect that and see that that is why they are now in your life instead, I think can actually lead to a lot of romance because it brings a lot of understanding and caring and love to a relationship.
Very valid.
How about you, Nicole?
My romantic reminder for this episode is supporting your partner's loves and passions can go a very long way in a relationship. one of the great things about Rupert and Jenny's relationship was, he wasn't a big donkey fan prior to hooking up with Jenny, but she had this lovely pet, and he's like, obviously, this is practically your family member. You really care for this animal. You know what? Let's give her her own special spot in her own little barn and her own little shelter. And he just really supported her. And it really spoke volumes to Jenny, because she's like, he's willing to embrace my lifestyle and my preferences. And now I feel like he truly cares about me and is interested in me. And it really helped grow their relationship throughout the story.
One of the best things my husband ever said to me was, if you really want a donkey. And that's not a lie, folks.
I mean, it's true, because Bob, my husband Bob,
your husband,
could give two shits about chickens, but he knows how much I love them. And he's always like, fine, you want chickens? I support you. Get your chickens.
Yeah.
So coming up for the rest of April, we are doing a celebration of one of our favorite romance authors, Heatherly Bell. In our next episode, we'll be reviewing some Heatherly Bell books. And then at the end of the month, for our third episode of the month, we've got an interview with Heatherly.
We do.
I'm so excited.
I wanted to do like this great introduction for this special episode. I was at a total loss with what to even write. So like, suffice it to say, I was a little starstruck and a little humbled that she graced us with her presence, because unbeknownst to me, folks, Nicole reached out to her and asked if she'd be willing to chat with us about her books, her writing process, her personal life, etc. And she said yes. So I found out after she had already said yes, and that made me so nervous. For those of you who may not have listened to the previous podcast where I covered some of Miss Bell's work, I read A Charming Christmas for one of our episodes in 2024. I don't remember which number that is. I'm so sorry. But I loved it. It was by far the best book I read for the podcast last year, and I'd say it's still probably one of the best ones I've read overall for the podcast. And since then, you and I have both managed to read more of her work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's a fabulous writer. She writes great dialogue, and she has realistic characters. We love her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what are you going to be reading for Heatherly for our next episode? Which book of hers?
I would love to tell you, but I do not know. I don't know. I don't have it. I know. Okay. I'm so sorry. So that'll be a surprise. Surprise. Because I want to read another one. I don't want to cover something I've previously read. So I'm not going to do it. I got to find something else, and I didn't buy it yet.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Do you have yours on you?
I have my synopsis. Yes.
Cool.
So I'll be sharing Lucky Cowboy. Heatherly recently announced online that she's in her cowboy era. So I'm embracing it. I'm feeling the cowboy love. Lucky Cowboy. Sadie Stevens has loved Lincoln Carver since she was a girl, but a family feud involving a runaway bride closed any options for a romance. Lincoln's only interest in her now is one of obligation and guilt. After all, he's the one responsible for the lassoing incident, don't ask. Lincoln is not worried about the lack of women in Stone Ridge, Texas. He's content earning the occasional buckle as a rodeo champ and working his family's cattle ranch. In fact, life was perfect until his matchmaking granny stuck her nose on his business. Now he's accidentally injured his best friend's sister, the woman partly responsible for a family feud. It's anyone's guess what will happen next.
I will say, I'm pretty sure what I had committed to last time we spoke was getting something from her Fortune series, Fortune California. Because I like the Charming books. I've already read 2 or 3 of them. My sister went through like all of those from front to back. Like when I said that I loved the series, she got them all on audiobook and got through like 6 books, I think, of the Charming series. Yeah, all at one time. So I think I'm going to go for one of the Fortune series. The Fortune books are set in California and they follow some pilots. And I enjoyed the last one I read from the Fortune series. So I'm going to grab something from that. I got nothing more exciting to say than we'll just find out. It'll be a surprise.
All right. Well, we've got Heatherly books and the Heatherly interview coming up. What's ahead for the summer? I can't believe we're talking about this summer already.
Oh, man. So I really feel like we need to get into some of these books from the authors from Romance Con. And I know that you just found a book from one of the Romance Con authors when you went to Second and Charles, which, by the way, I didn't know was a chain. I just found that out, that Second and Charles is a chain. I had no clue. So anyway, I just find that exciting that there's more than one we could go to for books. So I know that's on the agenda for sure, is to get through some of those authors. But we also had talked about A Christmas in July, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think I got to continue on with Cowboys and do a Cowboy Christmas in July.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's coming up for sure. I still have a cart full of books, and I think you do as well, sitting at Rip Bodice that we need to kind of figure out what we're ordering and move forward from there.
Yeah. I went to a bunch of estate sales over the weekend as well, trying to find some more reading material, and it was a abysmal failure. There were no trash rags to be found.
I was at the thrift today, and they had a banana box. So I don't know if you know how big a banana box is, but they are hefty boxes.
Yeah.
And they had it all taped off, so you couldn't see what was in it. And all it said was 100 Harlequins. And it was like $10 for this big banana box. And believe me, I thought about it. But I'm like, no, we're trying to cull the herd and get through the stuff we already have at the house. So I left that banana box behind for some other lucky customer.
Oh, you just don't even know what's in it. Is it like 50-year-old Harlequins? Is it more recent Harlequins?
My guess is it's old, kind of like raggy Harlequins that I probably do not need in my house, but
probably some Barbara Cartland.
Yeah. All I know is it was tempting, mystery box. So if anybody wants to go to the Green Bay East St. Vincent de Paul, it's sitting over by the Catholic literature. Not sure why, but that's where they had it.
Okay.
Good times.
I need to find some more thrift stores. And I think, we're hitting garage sale season. I'm hopeful that I will find some treasures at some garage sales.
Man, the garage church sales, man. Oh, down by you probably are going to have some amazing church sales. I would be checking my newspapers for that. That's for sure.
Awesome.
All right. What are we thinking? Are we getting out of here now?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank
you
guys. Thanks for joining us today for Romance on the Rocks. Please like, subscribe, and follow. And if you are a hopelessly romantic, bookish biddy like us, think about giving us a review on Apple iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you catch your podcasts. Your support really means the world to us. And until next time, stay safe and know that you are loved.